Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kelly's Astrology podcast. In today's show, I want to take you through a really core part of basic birth chart interpretation. I want to talk a little bit about the ascendant, and most importantly, I want to talk about the ascendant ruling planet. What I want to start sharing in some of the shows going forward is just some tips on how to connect with your birth chart. So today's episode is the first of those. The reason to learn about the ascendant and the ascendant ruling planet is that this is a really great starting place when you're thinking about what's important in a chart, or if you're wondering about where to start when you're sitting down to do a chart interpretation. So I'm just going to give you sort of a high-level overview of why we look at the ascendant and its ruling planet and some of the things that this planet will connect to in your life. I'll touch briefly on the sun and moon as well. And then I'm also going to talk about a very brief client example showing you how we start to combine some of the basics in a birth chart, like signs, houses, and planets, which is a lot to get through in one episode, but we're going to give it a shot. You know, when you are first starting out with your learning journey with astrology, there are some essentials that you really just need to focus on learning. And in some ways, it's a bit of memorizing. And so those first things that you're going to want to learn about when you're beginning your journey with astrology are the 12 houses, the 12 zodiac signs, and the planets. So you're going to want to learn the topics of the 12 houses. You're going to want to learn the core characteristics and the qualities of each of the zodiac signs. And of course, you're going to explore the meanings and the traits of each of the planets as well. I'm going to show you how we use this information when we get to our chart example today. But I just wanted to really name that is your core starting place in astrology. So if you're thinking I'm confused about something like an aspect or what have you, make sure you've got these basics sorted first. I'm not going to go through every topic of all 12 houses or every characteristic of all the planets today, because I would keep you here for days. If you're interested in an intro to the topics of the 12 houses, I do have a separate video on my YouTube that covers that. What I wanted to really kind of provide a little bit of an overview for today was just this idea of what we're doing when we're interpreting a birth chart. Ultimately, we're weaving these pieces of information together. Everybody has Mars somewhere in their chart, but what kind of a Mars? And what topics or areas of your life does Mars influence? Does Mars influence those areas of your life in a constructive way or in an irritating way? And so this is how we start to personalize. We all have Mars, but Mars is placed in a different house. It might be in a special sign, and it's going to be doing something a little different for each of us. But before we can figure out what is Mars doing that is unique to me, we need to know what Mars is about and the qualities of the signs or house that Mars might be connected to. Each birth chart is totally unique. And so how these different factors, signs, houses, and planets combine is really part of what makes your chart different from my chart or someone else's chart. You know, you and your sibling may have grown up in the same home, but you have different charts with different moon placements, for instance. Moon is a planet that is classically associated with family and with childhood, sometimes specifically with mother, but certainly with childhood and family in general. And so if you think about your moon sign or house versus a sibling's moon sign or house, that can talk a little bit about the different experiences that you might have felt, even though you grew up in the same home with the same parents. And so when we get to our chart example at the end of the session today, I'm hoping I'll be able to bring alive some of the things that we've been talking about. So this is a little bit of like a tapas tasting plate of some of the basics that you want to learn as you're getting into astrology. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I want to start with the ascendant today and actually want to focus most of today's episode on the ascendant and the ascendant ruling planet and talk a little bit about why that's important. Before I do, I want to make sure that you know that my once a year bundle offer is available right now. So once a year, we offer a very special price for students that want to come in to my full astrology training program. And that is happening right now, the first 2 weeks of September. So if you register before September 15, you'll be able to join the new intake of students, but most of all, you'll be able to save more than $300 off the registration cost. Classes start in mid-September, and if you would like to join the next group of students, pop over to kellysastrology.com. You can find out more details and you can register if studying astrology is right for you right now. If you've got questions about my full astrology training program, you are welcome to reach out to the support team. They're available their email address is help@kellysastrology.com. Hopefully, I'll be seeing you in class real soon. All right, let's get back to the ascendant. So, the ascendant is the most important point in the birth chart. There's lots of planets and lots of placements that are significant for specific reasons, but the ascendant is the only planet that has the only part of the chart that has this overarching level of importance. So, let's talk a little bit about what that is and why. The ascendant represents this kind of meeting of the divine sky and the material earth because the ascendant represents the eastern horizon or the eastern point. And so if you think about where you were born and you think about if one of your parents had looked east at the time you were born, there would have been a zodiac sign coming up on that eastern horizon. The eastern horizon is where things rise. And so your ascendant is sometimes also referred to as your rising sign. So your rising sign and your ascendant sign are the same thing. They sometimes just go by different names. So your ascendant is set at that moment that you were born. You know, the poetic description is at the moment you take your first breath. And this is why your birth time is so critical to astrology work. And anytime you've had a session with an astrologer, they really want to know what time you're born. So if you don't know your ascendant sign, you can work it out, but you will need your birth time. And what you'll do is you'll take your birth time along with your birth location and, of course, your date of birth, and you'll enter it into a free astrology software program. I have used in the past astro.com. It's got a very comprehensive free chart calculator software available there. So you'll enter in your time, date, and place of birth, and it will create your chart for you. And if you look in the left-hand side of the chart, that zodiac sign there is your ascendant or your rising sign. Now, for most people, your ascendant or rising sign will be different from your sun sign. Now, when we say our star sign, what we're really referring to is the zodiac sign the sun was in. So the more correct terminology there is that your star sign is technically your sun sign. And most of us define ourselves by our sun sign, even though the sun may or may not be the main planet having a say over you. So, from the perspective of an ancient astrologer, your ascendant sign and its ruling planet are actually the most important. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, just to give you a couple of examples about how the sun sign and the rising sign might be different. And for most of us, that's the case. The only time that your sun sign and your rising or ascendant sign will be the same is if you're born right near sunrise when the sun itself is in that eastern position. And so, if you're born around sunrise, you might have your ascendant sign and your sun sign the same. But for everybody else born at different times of day, your ascendant or rising sign will be different from your sun sign. So, for instance, Maya Angelou is an Aries. So, the sun is in Aries for Maya Angelou at the time of year she was born. But she has Leo rising. So, she's a Leo ascendant with the sun in Aries. A different example might be Jane Fonda, who has Capricorn rising or Capricorn ascendant, but is actually a Sagittarius, has the sun in Sagittarius. So it's very common for those two signs to be different. But we are going to do some sign blending, but we're not going to start here yet. So let's just recap quickly. We've got the ascendant, which is an important zodiac sign in our chart, and it's defined by the zodiac sign that is on the eastern horizon at the time and in the place that you were born. And I've mentioned that if you're looking at your printed chart, the proper circular chart, your ascendant will be the left-hand side of the chart. It's usually marked. Your ascendant degree will be a particular degree inside your ascendant sign. And that's usually marked with an arrow or sometimes the letters A and S. So your ascendant sign instantly sets the tone and the quality of energy for you and your personality. So straight away, you want to take a moment to connect with the characteristics or the qualities of the sign that is your ascendant. So is your ascendant a water sign? Do you have Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces rising? And therefore, the qualities of water are going to be really important to you. This might include sensitivity, feeling, it could be compassion, there could be a shyness there. We're going to have a lot of maybe tenderness or protectiveness when we have a water sign rising. But maybe your ascendant is a fire sign. Maybe you have Aries or Leo or Sagittarius rising. So maybe the qualities of the fire element are important to you. Maybe there is a lot of energy or extroverted kind of outward focus. Maybe you're willing to be a leader or take charge. Maybe there is a little bit more of a self-confident quality. So you can think about the qualities or the traits of the element of your ascendant sign as being important. Signs are also divided, they're divided by element, which you probably know, but they're also divided by something called modality. So we have signs that are fixed or are cardinal or are mutable. So, very briefly, mutable signs are more meandering and adaptable. Cardinal signs have a little bit more initiative, a little bit more of that get up and go. And fixed signs can be a little bit more steady, sometimes slow to get started, but good at finishing things. And so you can think about, oh, my rising sign is a mutable sign. So I've got that adaptable quality, perhaps. Or maybe your rising sign is a fixed sign. So there's sort of a more steady, repetitive, consistent quality. So when we learn the zodiac signs, we learn the characteristics of each sign individually, but we also learn what groups they belong to. What is the element or modality? These are the kinds of things that you learn in your very first course, at least inside my training program, because we really need to know all of these features of each zodiac sign to do our interpretive work. So one of the most important things that the ascendant sign is going to do in the chart is that it points out or indicates a very special planet. In ancient astrology, this planet is known as the helmsman. And this planet has great influence over your life. So the planet that rules your ascendant becomes this kind of leading or driving planet in your chart. And it's a huge planet, well, it's a planet that plays a huge role in your life. So what we want to look at is the original planet or the visible planet that's associated with your ascendant sign. So we won't have the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in this schema. I'm going to run through, if your ascendant sign is this, then this is the planet that is your special kind of leading or guiding planet in this lifetime. So if your rising sign is Aries or Scorpio, then Mars becomes your guiding planet or your helmsman planet. Mars is traditionally the planet that rules Scorpio. If you have a Taurus or a Libra ascendant, Venus is going to be your ascendant ruling planet. If you have a Gemini or a Virgo ascendant, Mercury is going to be your ascendant ruling planet. If Cancer is your ascendant, then the moon is the planet associated with Cancer. If Leo is your ascendant, we know the sun is belongs to the sign of Leo. So if you're a Leo rising, wherever the sun is in the chart becomes that much more important. If you're a Sagittarius or a Pisces ascendant, then Jupiter is the ruling planet of your ascendant sign. And wherever Jupiter is going to be that much more influential for you. If you're a Capricorn or an Aquarius rising, Saturn is your ruling planet. And that's because in our traditional model, Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius and Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces. So, in this sort of model of astrology where we're considering the ascendant as the place of vitality, of life force, and of kind of life focus, the ascendant ruling planet actually becomes more important than your sun sign or your moon sign, which might be a different way of thinking about the planets and how influential they are. Your ascendant ruling planet shapes your personality and it describes your body and your physical vitality. It can describe health challenges that you might face or periods in your life where health might be really great or could be compromised. So, your ascendant ruling planet is telling us about your identity. It's also, by its house placement, going to point to some of your interests and your areas of focus. And it has something to say about health and the body as well. So these are core important things that we want to know about. And we're going to look to our ascendant ruling planet to get that information. So straight away, you might be learning, oh, wow, I didn't know that this other planet was important in my chart. It's very common to think about the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, and they are important places. The ascendant for sure. The sun and moon are absolutely important in the chart, but they are important in a way where they are working with the ascendant ruling planet. And so I don't want you to think that the sun and moon aren't important, but I want to make sure that on this short list of what's super important in a chart, that you have the ascendant ruling planet there as well. So now that you've identified your ascendant ruling planet, the next thing you're going to do is just think about the general tone and qualities of that planet. You may or may not know a lot about these yet, but now you'll know what you want to go and research and read about. If you are a Capricorn or Aquarius rising and Saturn is your ascendant ruling planet, we know that Saturn has this very earthy, very steady, very responsible, sometimes cautious, and sometimes a little bit shy energy. So that's going to be a part of who you are. If you're a Gemini or a Virgo rising and Mercury is your ascendant ruling planet, we know Mercury is curious and can be chatty or conversational. Mercury can also be a thinker or a talker. And so if you have a Mercury ruled ascendant, there's going to be some emphasis on the intellect, ideas, and learning. The moon has traits associated with nurturing, with feeling, with connection, with protection, with memory. So if you're a Cancer rising, those moon qualities are going to be more important for you. If you're an Aries or a Scorpio rising, Mars is your ascendant ruling planet, and maybe action or reaction, maybe bravery or exploring your competitive spirit is going to be important for you. So, taking note of what your ascendant ruling planet is and just having a moment to think about its general tendency and tone. Then you can, of course, get much more specific and have a look at where in your birth chart is this important ascendant ruling planet placed. For instance, your ascendant ruling planet could be in any one of the 12 houses, and that will highlight the topics of whatever house your ascendant ruling planet is in as being of special interest and emphasis for you throughout your life. So your ascendant is kind of where the main life force energy comes in to the chart, and then it kind of tracks to wherever your ascendant ruling planet is. You might also want to consider the sign that your ascendant ruling planet itself is placed in. And now we get into a place where we can start to do some blending. You've got your ascendant sign and your ascendant ruling planet will be placed in a sign as well. So you might have two different signs here, and now we can start to do a little bit of blending. So, for instance, you've got your ascendant sign and the sign that your ascendant ruling planet is in. What are those two signs? Do they have anything in common? Are they similar? Are they different? Are they really like not the same at all? For instance, Maya Angelou, we said, had a Leo rising or a Leo ascendant, and she has the sun in Aries. One thing Aries and Leo have in common, they're both fire signs. So straight away, we know there's this very strong elemental emphasis of fire in the chart of Maya Angelou. That's going to give a spirit of adventure, a willingness to maybe take risks. We're going to have courage and bravery. We're going to have this searching for kind of inspiration and meaning and challenge. These are all fire qualities. So they're going to be important for Maya Angelou. On the other hand, Jane Fonda, who had that Capricorn rising, she has Saturn in Pisces. Remember, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So Capricorn and Pisces are both cooler signs. We have earth and water, and they're reflective, they're thoughtful. There's a steadiness from the Capricorn rising, that earth energy. And then we have the feeling or the compassion or the sensitivity of Saturn being in Pisces. So here we have two different signs that do have some things in common. To give you a contrast example, I have a client who is also Capricorn rising, but they have Saturn in Gemini. So they have that same rising sign as Jane Fonda, but they have a very different Saturn placement. So now you can start to think that there are kind of 12 types of Capricorn rising based on where Saturn might be. And that applies to all the rising signs. There are 12 types of Leo ascendants depending on where the sun is in the chart. So for the client who has Capricorn rising and Saturn in Gemini, Capricorn and Gemini are very different signs. One is earth, which is more cool and cautious and introverted. One is air, which is more outgoing and warm and expressive. So this client has to toggle between these two different elemental emphases. So you can start to see how even just by considering one essential part of your chart, your ascendant, that you're already diving into a more particular kind of energy and you're identifying a special pathway that is important for you. So if you think about the ascendant and its ruling planet, think about where is that ruling planet in your chart? And you could draw a line and think about that as a strong energetic track that goes from the ascendant to the house and the topics and the themes of wherever your ascendant ruling planet is. You can also start to see how important this blending of pairs of things in the birth chart is. And that's a huge thing that we do inside the astrology training program. We're teaching you the info and the insights you need, and we're guiding and showing you as to how to pull things together so that you can have insightful interpretations. Now, there's lots of planets and aspects in the birth chart, but you're always going to come back to these themes, these interests of your ascendant ruling planet. It's like your guiding light. That's how I think of it. I know that it is super popular to talk about the sun and moon sign, so let's touch on those briefly. If you're born in the daytime, your sun sign will be important. If you're born during the nighttime, your moon sign will be super important. So the sun and moon can play a large role in charts in different ways. But if you have to pick which one is more important for me, that daytime, nighttime division is the way to go. So if you're born at nighttime, then you're going to think about your moon and your moon sign as being super important. If you're born in the daytime, you're going to think about the sun and your sun sign as being super important. So if you're a day chart, which means you're born in the daytime, the sign and the house and the aspects of the sun are going to have a big say over who you are as a person. They're also going to contribute to some of what you do in your career, at work, professionally, that type of thing. If you're a nighttime chart, which means you're born after sunset or before sunrise, the influences of the moon, the sign, house, and aspects of the moon contribute to who you are as a person, and they have a role to play at work or in your career too. Now, right now, of course, we haven't talked about enough, and you may or may not know all the layers of meaning of your sun or moon or of your ascendant ruling planet, but at least you have a sense as to what to look at as a starting place in your chart exploration. Now, I did promise to share an example of some of the basics of these concepts in action. So let's do that. So far, we've touched on the importance of the ascendant. We've talked about what it is, what it's linked to, and why it's important. And we've talked about how the ascendant helps identify this important planet, your helmsman planet or guiding planet in the chart. We also talked about whether you should be focusing on the sun or the moon, depending on whether you're born at night or in the daytime. And so the final piece in this kind of birth chart basics view is to have a look at how planets link to the different houses. So this is kind of fun and it's super insightful. It is very core in terms of how to get to topics and themes and our experiences of them in our lives via the planets, of course. So in this client's chart, they have a Capricorn ascendant, which is around 11 degrees, and Jupiter sits very close to the ascendant at 7 degrees of Capricorn. So Jupiter sits right near the ascendant. So any planet that is on the ascendant or in the first house is going to bring its topics to the top of the life priority list. So planets that are in the first house or near the ascendant, they're emphasized in the chart and in the life. Now, we could talk generally about Jupiter, but we can be a little more specific than that. With a Capricorn rising chart in the whole sign format, we will see the sign of Pisces on the third house cusp, and we will see the sign of Sagittarius on the 12th house. Now, that's important because Jupiter is the manager of both Sagittarius and Pisces. So Jupiter manages this person's Sag 12th house and their Pisces third house. But Jupiter's right on the ascendant. So Jupiter's like, I have basically got full impact to kind of influence this chart with the topics that are important to me, which will be third house topics and 12th house topics. So one important third house topic is siblings. So something about siblings might be striking or could be really important and emphasized for this person. Now, the planet that we're looking at is Jupiter, which is associated with abundance. And I know most people think that abundance means money, but it really just means a lot, or it means more or bigger. And so a very simple interpretation here might be that this person has something of a Jupiter thing going on with siblings that's really emphasized for them. So a Jupiter thing could be a lot of siblings that's really important. And that is actually true. This person has 5 siblings. They're very close to most of their siblings, and their siblings are kind of integral to who this person is. If you know this person, you know about their siblings. And that makes sense because we have the planet of siblings, the ruler of the third house, is right by the ascendant, and it's Jupiter. So we've got that sort of hopeful or more uplifting energy. Things tend to make a big imprint when Jupiter is involved. But I did mention that Jupiter also rules the 12th house for this person. Capricorn rising means we have Sagittarius in the 12th. And so the 12th house is about spirituality. It's about retreat. It's about healing. It's about time alone. And it's also about suffering. Now, since we are looking at Jupiter as the ruler of the 12th house, we're connecting with those 12th house topics in a Jupiter way, maybe in an optimistic way, or a hopeful way, or a forward thinking way. And since these topics are of great interest for this person, and we know that because the ruler of the 12th is right on the ascendant, it's no surprise that this person loves to spend time alone. They enjoy exploring spirituality. They love learning about healing. They're interested in meditation and other mystical woo-woo topics. They do very genuinely enjoy time alone, spiritual practices, whether that's yoga and breath work, all those kinds of 12th house themes. But they're also really interested in relieving the suffering of others. And that's very common when we have one of our helpful planets like Jupiter connected to the 12th house. It is a place of suffering, but here we see Jupiter bringing ease to what hurts with the 12th house. And that's a huge part of who this person is because that 12th house ruling planet, Jupiter, is right on their ascendant. So this is some super simple examples of how we start to put together planets and signs and houses in a birth chart. I wanted to show you this in action. Even though I appreciate to do this, we need to go away and make sure we know what the 12 houses are about, that we know the qualities of the planets, and we have a sense of the zodiac signs. But just to give you an example of what you can do once you get those basics sorted, I hope this has been inspiring for you. Of course, there's so much more to interpreting a chart, but this is where we begin. These are the kinds of conversations that I have with clients all the time. And so, of course, we can get more technical and complex, but there's a lot of richness even in these starting place techniques. If you are interested in studying astrology in a really supported and structured way, pop over to kellysastrology.com and take advantage of the special bundle offer on the full training program. It's available only until September 15. Thanks so much for joining me today, everyone, for another episode. I hope it's been interesting and insightful for you. If you have any questions, any comments, let me know in the comments section below. I'll be back to share your 2-week forecast, talking all about the lunar eclipse in Pisces in next week's show. Until then, everyone, take care.